There is and was so much love. So much love. And it is a wild experience to end a relationship that's had so much karma, that's had so much to work with, so much love, so much to learn from, and realize the relationship, the karma has reached completion. And we experience that. You're listening to The Madeline Moon Show, the podcast that will show you how to become masterful at making art out of love, life, and everything that comes your way. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Madeline Moon Show. I am your host, Madeline Moon, and I have some really deep, sensitive, exciting, tender, nuanced material to share with you today. And I am prefacing this from the start because I want to dive in. I want to make this a really beautiful hour that you are going to spend with me. And I want to set some foundation at the beginning. So in this episode, what I'm going to talk about is my last relationship and the ending and how I've been since and how I've been maneuvering in it, and answer some of y'all's questions and speak to some things that were not spoken to before, honor some things, acknowledge some things, put a period on some things. And I want to say up front what this is not. This is not a spilling the tea moment. This is not here are all the things I want to tell you about that were like painful and blah, 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 blah. This is not that. So for anybody who's like, yay, we're going to hear the inside scoop of all the doom and gloom and nope, not what we're doing. Today's episode is about my journey in this, my perspective in this, and it's alongside deep reverence and deep love and respect for the journey that I have had with this particular man and the journey that I have in the name of love. And also, in a way, it feels a bit like a coming out episode from my journey and sharing with you all the way I want to share. Because what's interesting is that I actually stopped the first iteration of this podcast. This podcast used to be called Mind, Body, Musings. It was called that for like 10, 11 years. And I ended that around the beginning of me and John's relationship, because it felt like who I was evolving into and the podcast, that it couldn't really merge because our relationship was quite private in a beautiful way. And I couldn't quite figure out, how do I have this if you go back in those 10 so years of episodes, they're like, I'm divulging everything. I was so open. I was telling you left and right every little thing about my life, from breakups in the moment of them to my folliculitis on my hoo-ha. Like, everything was shared with y'all. And then when I entered this relationship with a public figure who is a public figure and desired for things to be more, contained, I was learning how to do that. And so I kind of stopped the podcast and went through this immersion of what does it mean to have containment. So there's periods of expression, right? Expression, revealing, showing, and then there's periods of containment. And I'm so grateful to our relationship for teaching me what containment really means in relationship. And now I'm in this experience of like, okay, I'm coming back into that version of myself that shares and is vulnerable and open, and also merging the periods of containment and having that muscle so instilled in me now. What does that harmony look like in both? And so here's this episode where I'm like, okay, I'm combining both. There's going to be things that are contained, and there's also things that I'm going to divulge and share with you. So it is now, as of when this episode is releasing, beginning of November 2024, and we were breaking up around March of 2024. So it's been several months at this point. And where I want to begin, we may end up going a little bit further in the beginning, but where I want to start for now is the episode we did together. So, John and I did an episode together in this studio about our coming back together, about our love, about all the trials and tribulations we experienced in partnership and what we were doing to work through it and how we were choosing each other and how we loved each other. And that episode was so exciting. It was so exciting to share. I felt so soothed in my heart to finally proclaim my love with this man publicly, which I'm getting emotional because that was a tender thing in the first year of our relationship. It was a very tender thing. It was something that I really wanted, is for us to shine our love from the mountaintops. And in the first year, right? So it's a little backstory again. We were together for a year. We broke up for a year. We're together for a year. And now we're broken up again. So that's the story. So, it was so special to me to sit here and to have this moment where we really got to be seen together. And I'm so grateful we created that piece of art together for several reasons, other than us being able to show us to the world. We got to really unpack a lot of our struggles and our dynamic publicly, and also honor and really speak to as specifically as possible what we were doing to heal those wounds. And all of that was true. I want to say this clearly. Everything I've ever shared, ever, in the moment is very true. And just because life changes, I remember a lot of people were following along the journey with me the first time him and I broke up, and how upset I was about the polarity world. The upset about the polarity world is and was true. There was a lot of really important stuff coming through me that actually wasn't about John. And that was all true. And then we got back together and people were like, wait, does that mean that the stuff that felt off for you around polarity is no longer true? And what this really reflected to me a lot of the time when people felt so confused was, we need to speak more about holding several things at the same time. Something can be true around polarity not feeling quite right, and you can deeply love someone. A relationship may not be till the end of time, and you can still love them so deeply. This is one of the gifts this relationship has taught me. And so when we did this podcast, I have received so much feedback, particularly from men. I've received feedback from men after they listened to that podcast with John and I and said, thank you so much for taking that level of accountability in your shit. Thank you for showing us what it looked like to take that level of accountability. And I had women say, thank you for giving me hope with my beloved. I'm also in an age gap relationship. And the feedback was so beautiful. I'm so grateful for that episode we did. And I want to say something now that we hold on the other hand. Something that in my time in my relationship with John that I have kind of skyrocketed in is the ability to make art out of my crazy, make art out of my silly, make art out of my places that I am, ice queen or bitch. And what I felt in that episode particularly was that in my system, it felt like I went a little above and beyond, to the point where I felt all the very real stuff I experienced in our first separation, I watered down. I made it kind of small. I made me seem like I was almost so crazy that those things weren't legitimate. And I don't take it back because, again, I want to show and I love to show how you make art out of the parts of you that are healing, that are changing. And yet I remember in that episode, there was this, after we recorded it and we posted it, I was like, woo, I love this. And then there was also this kind of essence of wise woman that came through in me that rose and was like, woman, yes, you have this part of you that is crazy. And yes, you have this part of you that may, close off because you're afraid. And also, woman, stand in your truth. Stand in that. And there's a way, I believe, to do that powerfully, to honor and acknowledge where you're still shifting and growing, and also hold the pole, hold the wise woman, hold the truth of what you see, trust yourself. And I did trust myself, but I think I was demonstrating in this podcast we did together. It was like I was, yes, in a way, it was like I was making my maturity and my sight a little smaller than it actually was. And that didn't sit right with me. That was kind of one of the moments where I was like, something here feels off within me in such a way I really need to pay attention to it. Pay attention to this woman that's coming through and start to notice, what do I do when her sight feels so clear? How does her clear sight work in this relationship? Okay, so this started happening, and at the same time that these inquiries were starting to get a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger, I had the brilliant idea to come out with a program called Manifest Your King. Manifest Your King. It was around Christmas. John and I were having like just beautiful Christmas time. It was like all warm and cozy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've manifested my dream life. I live in this incredible house. I've got the man. We're going to have a baby. Like, oh my, I just luxury, so much beauty. And I was like, you know what? I know how to manifest a king. Why don't I create a program around this, specifically what I've learned in manifesting a man? And, if y'all don't know me, I go to town when I have an idea. So I quickly went to town on creating the copy, creating the sales page, getting the photo shoot done, making the graphics, posting it up, writing out the outline, recording all the material. And it was like sales page was almost done. It had pictures of me and John all over the place. It was like, I'm a fan, manifesting my king. Everything is great. Life is amazing. Do you want this too? and it was around that time, because this is how Goddess works, it was around eclipse, that we had this experience together that brought front and center the words we did not want to use, which was, I think this is the end. Believe this is the end. And there were multiple moments of that. Like any good relationship has, there are moments of weaving. Can we do this? No, we shouldn't. Yes, we should. We should keep trying. I think we can. That's a beautiful way to end, actually. It's a little confusing in the moment, but it's a beautiful way to end because it's thoughtful. When you're not completely sure and you give the relationship space to go in the high highs and the low lows for a little bit of time of like, I love you. Can we make this work? Oh, I don't think so. Like allowing yourself to find that very true end answer sometimes takes a little bit of that in, out, I don't know, being in the I don't know. But the moment where that was first dropped, I mean, it was really scary. It was very scary. We had spent so much time going all in, like in this last time moving in together and talking about baby names and planning fertility and all of these very tender things that require someone to really open their heart. Like our hearts were blasted open. Never in my life had I felt so ready to commit to somebody. I believe I can say the same for John, given what he shared with me. But when that happened, I was simultaneously working through my personal feelings around, are we ending, and creating a program. And this is actually, like, what's up with my karma? This is actually what happened when I wrote Artist of Love. Same thing. When we're going through our breakup, I was writing Artist of Love. And it started when we were still together. And then we were breaking up, and my editor was like, rewrite this whole book. And so at the beginning of our breakup, the first time, I was rewriting Artist of Love. This whole book was being written over, and then Manifest Your King. And so then I went into my sales page and I had my branding designer like, okay, I gotta go back in, remove these photos. Remove these photos. Let's change the marketing strategy, not about look what Madeline knows and look what Madeline does, into this is how I can support you and serve you. Which I'm being jovial around this in this episode, but that was actually a very deep experience for me where it brought so much front and center of imposter syndrome. And, I very easily could have I'm making a program around this, so we're going to keep on working at this. Not to say that would have been the wrong path, but it wasn't the correct one for me. The correct one for me was, okay, I'm going to tend to my personal life. I'm going to tend to my personal life on its own, unrelated to what I do for work, unrelated to what I'm creating. This is its own beautiful entity and baby that needs attention and love. And I'm going to give all of my love and my heart to this, to figuring out what John and I are meant to do. On the other side, as a CEO and a businesswoman, I'm going to get very clear about how I support and I serve outside of my own things. And I think this is something really important for the coaches out there to learn how to do, because we so often intertwine our services with who we are. This is who I am. This is the thing I create. And I think in some ways, this is beautiful for the artist part of us. In other ways, this is a hindrance and it keeps us stifled in what's all possible. Because when I start to think, okay, I'm creating something about manifesting a man that's not actually just about me, there's a roof that is blown off. Now I can access all sorts of things, because if I'm creating this program totally based off of my experiences, there's a cap on it. These are all the things I've experienced. These are all the things I know in this relationship and what I have done. But when I look at this from the businesswoman perspective of I am serving you, I'm supporting you, I'm a vessel for you. This is not about me and what I've built. This is about you. This is about taking all the tools I've received objectively from all the teachers I've worked with, all the things I've learned in the last 15 years of my life, and supporting you by focusing on you and focusing on the woman who's coming into this work, her story, her experiences, and get out of my own way. This becomes so much stronger. It's become stronger. And it was actually a beautiful experience for me and getting right in my integrity with this program. I remember thinking, all right, if I'm going ahead with this, I have to get so right with it. I have to get so clean with it. I have to harness my vessel, strengthen my vessel, and really learn how to have embodied boundaries between Madeline the woman and Madeline the teacher, which is a beautiful skill for any coach to learn so that we can still have fruitful, successful businesses and lives and be of service. When our world is crumbling, when shit's hitting the fan, how do we come into a container with a straight spine, a soft heart, and an open vessel, even when something chaotic is happening with the kids back home? How do we teach people about art even when we have writer's block, so we could say? How do we show up to the altar and teach people how to have strong bodies and nurse their bodies well when ours is sick? Yeah, so learning how to separate the two is something that we don't often talk about in this coaching world. It's always about me, 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 me. So this is not, this podcast is not necessarily about that, but I wanted to bring that in because certainly when you have a public relationship and you're also a creative and you're a teacher and you're an artist, there are a lot of eyes on you in everything that you make. And I love that experience. I loved that experience that I had to walk through of this falling apart, this falling apartness, and also staying clear and creating from this place of offering, of generosity, of giving. So moving on, during this breakup and during this period of what are we doing? One of the opportunities that I had was, it was John's birthday. And so we had planned a birthday party for him when we were doing well. And during the eclipse, when all of this stuff came up, well, I'll go into that in a minute. First of all, I want to talk about why. just briefly. And really, what's the reason? Because this is the question a lot of people have. What is the reason for us ending this time? Beautiful question. And what I will tell you is that there is and was so much love. So much love. And it is a wild experience to end a relationship that's had so much karma, that's had so much to work with, so much love, so much to learn from, and realize the relationship, the karma has reached completion. And we experienced that. I'll speak for myself. I really experienced that. And there were a few things that led into that final knowing. One, we did everything. We did everything. I mean, short of getting married and having a baby, but we did everything up till that point that doesn't completely bind you together for life outside of that love. If we got married and if we had a child, there would be that next level of where we are bound in some way forever for the rest of our life. And as we were getting closer and closer to this, these patterns continued to arise that showed me the way we connect, the way we move through things, the way we want to move through things, the way we want to work through arguments. Basically, what it comes down to is some of that bone layer of compatibility wasn't there. It wasn't there. Again, love there. Love is there. But the ways that I wanted to work through things and the way that he wanted to work through things was not there. And I think the way that I felt he wanted me to work through things, it decreased my energy. No fault of his, no fault of ours. This is an alchemical thing, right? So me on my own is different from me in relationship with John. Me on my own is different from me in relationship with anybody. It would be different. So there's an alchemy that occurs when two people come together. It doesn't matter how much work you have done on your own and they have done on their own. The minute you come together, just like if you do something like acrobatics and acro yoga, you are as strong as the other person is weak, I guess. I don't know. Yes, I think that's the phrase. You're as strong as the other person is weak because you're together. And so our compatibility styles and how we wanted to move through things, for me, was not strong enough for us to bring a child through. The way that I see bringing a child through is that you're bringing a child through with a foundation that is above and beyond what you were given. I would not want to give a child anything that would feel similar to what I was raised in my parents' communication styles. Like I would want to come in I would want my child to come in witnessing communication styles that were really aligned so that there was room for the child to explore and make mistakes and learn and grow. And I would feel so entirely resourced to be able to give to that child. So at the end of our relationship, I was really searching for, am I resourced enough now to think that I would still be resourced as a mom? Or am I not resourced enough now and I need to be a lot more resourced in order to be a mom, which then would take away my resources naturally in depletion? Is my cup overfloweth, basically? Is my emotional cup overfloweth so that I feel prepared to bring in something into this world that's going to take a lot of my energy? And it wasn't. It wasn't. And it continued to not be. It continued to not be at the same time that the love continued to deepen, that the love continued to grow, that the part of me, like my heart was like, I'll follow this man forever. And then there was another part, not to say that I'm split or fragmented, but a louder voice that said, I need to be more resourced. And what I need in relationship is different from what he needs. That's a hard pill to swallow. And that's why we tried so hard. That's why all couples try so hard. And they keep going and they keep going and they keep doing more work. And that is all we can really do is continue to listen, continue to dive in, continue to unfurl and unpack and see how we can grow. John and I very easily could have continued that on. We could very easily still be doing that right now. And that wouldn't be wrong either. That also would be correct if I felt it was correct. At the time of the eclipse and in March, April, it was one of the oddest things. I've never experienced this where it was truly like complete. Like there were things that happened in a week time span where it just became so clear in my body, this is not how I want to bring a child through. And the continual battle that we were facing around our communication style was simply not one I wanted in my life anymore. And yeah, it's challenging to really speak that truth. And I also just want to remind you in this moment that this is an alchemy. And it's important not to take things so personally about yourself and say, this is what this means about me. I'm not doing enough work, or he's not doing enough work, or making him wrong, or making yourself wrong. It's so easy to do that in these situations. It feels good. It feels good to make something wrong. It feels a lot more uncomfortable to not make something wrong and just to step into the void of something new. I had to let go of something so beautiful, so magical. Someone so beautiful and so magical. Something so good. I had it very well. I had it very good. And there were so many ways I trusted John. I relied on John. I believed in John. I saw John. So many ways. And to me, I was valuing my listening, my wise woman coming through, the listening, the sight, above all. And there was a voice that was getting louder and louder that was saying very clearly, this is not the forever. And it was more so about this is not the dynamic for forever, rather than the human. No part in my body, no voice was like, he's not the right one. It's not how it works for me, because that's why we do the work. That's where hope comes in, is that you can always do more work to make someone you're struggling with the one, like, the one to last forever with. But for me, it was more so about this dynamic, the push and pull that we were experiencing in us trying to communicate, right? There was no specific thing. There wasn't like a thing. Like, we had very similar lives. We had similar personalities, desires, dreams. We were so on board with so many things. So many things were so, we rarely disagreed about actual things we loved or believed in. It was more so about our nervous systems. I'm a very sensitive cat, incredibly sensitive. He is an incredibly, I don't know how you would, durable. He's rock solid in a lot of ways in his nervous system of just like high energy, being able to do things and see things through and go, 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 go. And, big levels of energy and expression also resonate with him a lot different from me. And so there would be these moments of like, we talked about this in the podcast of like him being a wave and then me being an island and going off. And like, that's the dynamic I'm speaking to. And I merely experienced this sight, this knowing that, the alchemy that I want to experience to bring a child through is a different kind of alchemy. Not making myself wrong for my sensitivity. And in fact, that's my superpower. And I could not highlight my superpower in that relationship because I was not, whether it was because of me or our dynamic, able to really give that sensitivity as much space as it needs. I'm very sensitive. And so it's about nervous system compatibility in the end. It's about nervous system compatibility. And doesn't mean love ever goes away. It just means that you're going to continue to build something with somebody else where there might be, hopefully, absolutely will be, more nervous system compatibility. So, okay, so fast forwarding, it's April time, and we're coming to this conclusion of like, okay, our nervous systems are just different. We love each other, and this is just different. And I threw John a birthday party, and it was a lot of people. It was a big party, and probably I would say about 10 of the people knew out of the 50 or 40 that we were breaking up. So, wow, what an experience to be generous and love with this man and, decorating the house. I made these cute little cocktail menus for drinks that had to do with John and his age he was turning and his name and getting him his cake and many more things that happened in this evening, putting on for him. And for me, I was like, this is my moment to be so incredibly generous with this man and break through all that breakup stigma, break through all the stuff your body wants to do in a breakup where it's like, I'm going to get mad and I'm going to get resentful and I'm going to punish him and I'm going to turn the other way and I'm going to withhold my love. And I made this as a practice as an artist. I'm going to shower this man. I'm going to shower this man. I'm going to raise this man to the rooftop and celebrate him and gather all these people to celebrate him. And I want this to be the biggest celebration of our love, of him. And here's what I will say very clearly. So one of the questions y'all have asked me about, what have I gained from this relationship? I have understood in a whole new way that I never did generosity and love. And I owe that to John. He is one of the most generous men ever. Yeah, he's incredibly generous and it's easy to love him. And you know what? I think the first time we broke up, I didn't know how to be with how much I loved him. It hurt too much in the first breakup. Oh my gosh, I love this man. So I'm going to just turn all of this love into anger and rage at our love not panning out, at all the things that I was upset at. And in this relationship, in the ending, that was gone. I realized how free I was in my ability to love him past the expiration of our relationship. And love him and love him and love him and love him. And I am allowed to just love him forever. However I want to, however it's meant to, without having to clamp down on that or stifle that. And in our separation, we loved each other so well. Oh my gosh, we had a month of taking turns holding each other, being in confusion. I'd be confused. He'd hold me. He'd remind me. He'd kiss me. I'd sit in his lap and he'd just rock me. And then we would switch. And then he would be emotional. And then I would hold him and I would remind him and I'd be his rock. And it was literally like that for a month, back and forth, until we worked that through our system. And then also for another 2 months, there was generosity in our energy when we needed each other, when we were working through things. And just so much generosity. And I really received that from him because he's done so much work in his life to open his heart in a life where the cards were dealt that things have happened for him. Losing a daughter, having relationships end, and he's really learned that. And what I'm so grateful for is his mentorship in love in a way. And him, for better, for worse, in all of our arguments, sometimes I did not love the way things were being worked through or him showing me, but he always showed me how to come back into a state of love as quickly as possible. Where that was my struggle in bigger fights because of my childhood and enmeshment. And I have a history of being kind of harassed in my family system. A lot of that until I had to go numb so I couldn't feel anything at all to protect myself. And when you're with a personality like that, my former partner, sometimes I can get re-triggered. And so I would have a harder time coming back into a flow of love. But over the course of the 3.5 years of us being together, where I started and where I ended was drastically different. I actually feel I grew from being maiden to mother in this relationship with John. And because we started this relationship and me in a very maiden-y way. Oh my gosh, I'm not even going to go into it, but there were so many maiden moments and me milking the maiden, me just overindulging in the youth of me, playing with our polarity and And as I continued to be in relationship with him, really, and this is a lot what I again landed with when I was repivoting Manifest Your King, is that we are becoming queens in these relationships with kings. And before we meet kings, we're becoming queens, and we become queens by being the kingmaker. And I had John a bit on a pedestal through the beginning of our relationship. And in relationship with him, I had to cut that shit out. I had to cut that shit out. And I realized this man's not perfect. I'm not perfect. And I became, as much as I could, kingmaker, and like really calling him forth, calling me forth, becoming a queen, rising. And I'm so grateful I can track literally end of maidenhood to really motherhood, because our ending of our relationship in a very strong way is the beginning of my motherhood, because of choosing the dynamic that this baby comes into the world. And I'm not even focused on having a baby right now. Like, that's so not where I am right now. But when you're in a relationship and you're on the way, like, that becomes very front and center. So yeah, that was really one of the first decisions that I made. And in no way, shape, or form does it not mean that he is not an amazing father, was an amazing father, will be an amazing father if he has another child. It's just like our alchemy. I'm responsible too. This is not about John. It's just about us. Like, I'm responsible as well. And this is just a God thing. It's a goddess thing. Just like showing us we don't have to make this, mean anything, mean I'm bad, he's bad, this was wrong, this was a failure. It's just like, whoa, this relationship expanded me to an extent that no relationship in my life ever has. Thank you so much for that experience, for me growing, for me shape-shifting, for me realizing my voice and my truth in such a way that I don't think would have happened in this way. My business blew up and expanded being with him and his wisdom, and him really pushing me to, film everything and have group coaching programs and move through situations like this. Like, I was so fortunate to receive that from him, and his wisdom and his generosity in love in that way. And so we really got to end our relationship on this beautiful note of generosity and kindness. And of course, it continued on until we were in different houses, and I moved into my house and set my new foundation. And grief is a very interesting thing, because I think we all start with harsh grief, the beginning of something breaking down. We have harsh grief. We have like explosive tears and agony, and we need to be held. And there's a lot of confusion. Like, the confusion, I think, is one of the most painful things about grief, especially harsh grief, because you're so in it. And then as you go on and you start to grieve and grieve well and take space to grieve, you go into soft grief. And soft grief is like the little tendrils that pop up when you hear that song, or you make a specific kind of food you used to make, and then you feel the soft grief. And I have soft grief that will come through where I'll think of something or see something, particularly 3 days before I bleed. It happens every time. For about 3 days, I have this soft grief that comes through where I'm like typing, da 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 da, and then I'm like crying, and then I just start typing, and it just washes through, it moves through. And, I think that it's so important to honor the endings as much as we honor the beginnings of relationships, really honoring by being there for each other. This is my personal belief. Unless you're in a situation that is abusive and you are very clear that every time you're in something, you kind of get mind sucked and you need hardcore space, no contact. I'm really grateful that we gave each other a few months of contact and of working things through our system as we separated, until we realized it was no longer serving. And so there was a point when we realized that it's no longer serving for us to keep reaching out when one of us is in pain. And so we decided this is the time to go into no contact. And, every relationship is different, but why I'm saying that is because I think that we did it really right this time by giving each other and giving the relationship a funeral, giving it space, giving it our honoring, pulling out the pieces of what was so beautiful, honoring each other, so much honoring, like completing with grace and with love. So much grace, so much forgiveness. We were even more grace, giving each other more grace in the breakup than we were in the relationship. And even in all that, I think sometimes we can get confused when things all of a sudden become good in a relationship and like in the breakup. And yes, that can, for many couples, be a turning point. Keep going until you feel complete. It's my best piece of advice. Like, keep going until you feel complete. I had to do that, and I would do it again. And I'm telling you right now, if I had felt like, we needed a year or we needed a few months and we were going back in, I would, because I listened to my compass. That's the leader I am. That's the leader I want to be. I'm not very interested in being the kind of leader that shows you only this is longevity and sustainability through and through and through, and I'm going to ignore myself in efforts to show you what it looks like to make something work. My dharma, my mission, my goal as leader is to show you what it looks like to be a woman who listens, even amongst your job being something, or wanting to set an example in a certain kind of way, or making a program around something, or looking stupid. What does it look like to listen to the voice within you above everything? And bravely, courageously go into the deep end, go into the mystery, because it took so much in me to leave something beautiful for something that's absolutely not here, like being back on my own. And that is the kind of leader I choose to be. And how I want to be is to show what that looks like, to have courage, even when there's love, to have courage and to be able to step into something, step into that mystery. And yeah, and so that's been such a beautiful gift that he has given me and that our relationship has given me, is to listen deeply. And so I want to also talk about, because I've received some questions, like one of the questions is, what have you really received about yourself, me, in this relationship and separation that I'm taking forward? And one of the things that I have anchored in really deeply is to honor my input and my knowing and my needs and my sensitivity just as much as as the man that I'm with. Because how often is it in this culture of women and men where, we're like taught left and right and everywhere to be led, and what does he want? What does he say? And how is he leading us? And this is the thing with polarity that I was originally, back in the day when I was writing all about, was going off about. That was the thing, about ignoring your wisdom and your sight, because it's actually the woman, the feminine, that is responsible for raising the consciousness in a relationship. And I was getting that backwards. And so in our relationship, and this is a pattern of mine, this is not like this is with him, this is a pattern of mine with the world and with men that I have been working on since our separation, is I would notice how often, very simple example of, let's say, going out a second night, 2 nights in a row, and I'm a sensitive person. And so maybe I don't feel like going out another night, but I would somehow do this thing with my mind of like, well, he's leading us somewhere I can't lead myself, so we're going out to another party tonight, even though I'm tired. So earlier I was speaking about how my energy started to decrease. And these are the subtle ways that a sensitive woman who has sight, her energy can start to be decreased in relationship if she stops listening. She stops listening to her truth, to her voice, to her knowing, to consciousness, to sight. And so I would have these experiences in our partnership where I would just continuously not want things my way or say things my way in the relationship things we did. I'm not talking about arguments or how we moved through things. I'm talking more so about daily things, or energetic body things, or going out things, or, I would mold. And I think this is a big thing a lot of women experience. They say, how do you not lose yourself in relationship? That's what I'm talking about. So it's something you craft and you harness and you focus on for a period of time very intently. And this is deep training. This is deep training. I mean, I've been in a intensive experience the last, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, focused on this. All the ways that I override my voice, all the ways I override my no, or override the thing that I'm feeling that feels off, or override, just there was so much overriding. And men naturally have a much denser nervous system. So if we as women who are already more inherently sensitive are also taught to listen to him above ourselves, that's double trouble. That's like double on, because they already have a denser nervous system. Your superpower is your sensitivity, and now you're being told not to listen to that and to follow them instead. So this is deep. This is very deep programming. And it doesn't matter, you could have the most incredible king and you still do that on your own. I was doing that on my own. That's something I realized I was doing. And this is how we start to get resentful in relationship, because we start to drop all these things that make us us. And sometimes it's alchemy. It's like, no matter how much your man is like, be yourself, want what you want, say what you want to say, you still can't, because it's your work. It's your work to figure out how to say the thing. I don't want to do that. I want to stay in tonight. I'm too tired. No more sex. Whatever it may be. It's like learning how to say it and owning it, even if it's uncomfortable. This is a part of your sustainability in relationship, and it was certainly a part of my sustainability, is learning, because this is my gift in relationship also, as I see things and I feel things and I am aware of things. And it also feels really important for me moving forward in relationship that I'm with somebody who also values that as a superpower. And I'm not saying that my former partner did not value that. I'm saying that it wasn't as present in that relationship. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. And my work right now is, how do I continue to harness it so that that is unpenetrable? So yes to being penetrated by life. Yes to being so open that you feel life. Yes to being penetrated by your man's consciousness and his love for you. Allow that to open your heart. But some things, like your truth, need some time to learn what it's like to be impenetrable, to become steel, to feel the one in you who is shield maiden, who has the sword and the shield and is armored with the things she needs, to feel her truth and never drop it. I wasn't at that place in that relationship. And it's one of the gifts that I received in our separation, of really learning how important this is for me, not only to be a partner, but like that is important for me in relationship to my students, to the containers that I teach, to the site coming through. Like, if sensitivity isn't valued here in the most intimate place of your life, whether because of you, yourself, not valuing it, or your partner, you sure as heck can believe that it is not going to be blossoming and amplified in your creative endeavors and in your business and in your client relationships. So there's a harmony you want to continue to cultivate and create. Harmony here amplifies the harmony here, amplifies the harmony here. And since he and I have separated, I have been on a masculine cleanse, and I've never talked about this on my social media. It's quite frankly not something that I really cared to talk about, because it's so personal and individual, and is mine to have right now. And also, this is the perfect time to talk about it. It has given me so much. It has been one of the most crucial things I have ever done. Highly recommend it for you, anyone to do after the ending of a karmic relationship, or any relationship, actually, to give yourself space to fully exhale the relationship. Give space to fully exhale. It's an honoring. It's like allowing yourself to just lie in the soil for a bit and feel the burial and relax your bones and relax your body, and have no one to tend to, and no one to process things with, and no one to work on things with, and no one to play romance with, because a lot of that that's a whole other podcast, but a lot of that we do in the name of love is actually just like an addiction to being seen and an addiction to being wanted and playing games with each other. And if you are serious about becoming the woman you want to be for your next relationship, I think it's important to allow the lessons from the previous ones settle and the version of you that is destined to be with this next partnership come forward. And that's what this space has really given me. Without any masculine energy in my life, no one giving me a drop of flirtation or like bringing me on dates, like none of that. And it's been beautiful. It's actually been incredibly awesome and relieving and fun. And I have so much more space. It's like guess what? I'm recording the audiobook for Artists of Love. I'm so excited. But I have energy for all these things. I've got energy for the audiobook. I've got the energy for the podcast is back. And I'm putting things out on social media every single day. And I'm writing and I'm recording and I've got all these program ideas and like all these things are happening. And it's because my life force is really harnessed and clear right now. The work is creating an even stronger business and foundation and growth, and me getting that sight even more instilled. I'm creating space for my sensitivity to be so strong that it never disappears again. That's what this cleanse is really giving me. I am solidifying, I'm creating a reference point for a life full of my own nervous system sensitivity that gets to be sensitive without having to change for anybody. I'm letting this be so permanent in my body that the next time I am in relationship, there's no way I can ignore it. There's no way I'll override it. I'm so in devotion to my body and my nervous system, and there's no overriding. And sometimes we override things within ourselves in the name of love. We love somebody so much. We want to make it work. We want to meet them at their energetic capacity. We want to do more work. And also there are times where it doesn't have to be so hard. It doesn't have to be so hard. And it's your choice. Do you take the road and the path of continuing on the work, or do you find nervous system compatibility perhaps in another direction when the time is right? So, that was a lot. That's a lot to share. That is where I'm at now in my, in my heart. That's what's been moving. And I'm continuing this cleanse until January 1st. So this is just the next 2 months are my final months of this cleanse to continue giving myself through the holiday season all the love, all the family vibes, all the connection, all the heart. Especially for anyone who's single, this period, the holiday period, can be particularly sensitive, especially if your last holiday season was full of lots of joy and thinking you were gonna be engaged and like all this stuff. It's a nice hefty contrast. Yay. More reasons to make art. And I'm actually feeling really great about this. I'm actually feeling awesome about going into the holiday season like this. And, my sister's engaged. Two of my closest friends are having weddings. My other best friend is falling in love. My other best friend is in love. Everybody's in love. And honestly, I feel so happy for them. I feel so good in my body and in my system and being there for myself. It sounds a little cheesy, but I am truly deeply falling in love with myself in a way that I haven't, because I had this period of tending to somebody else and him tending to me. And now with us not tending to each other, I'm oh yeah, I get all this space to tend to me and what I want and what I need and my nervous system. And it's all in service, yes to me, yes to, sharpening my voice, my sensitivity, and my truth for the sake of my future family. And it's all this is also for my beloved and the partner that I'm going to end up with. I'm exhaling out this last relationship in the last 3 to 4 years of some pretty significant life-altering experiences so that I come to the altar of love fully ready and available, not a moment too soon. And 6 months for me, it's actually quite a short amount of time. And yet giving myself this contained amount of time to fully be with myself, not allowing other energies to come in and like, whoa, that's how we get confused oftentimes, by the way. That's how a lot of times people are confused in the name of love because they introduce a new energy too soon from the last one that they were in love with. And you don't like that new energy very much, so it makes you miss the old one. Yeah, so then we have this ping-ponging thing. This is the beauty of having no energy at all except for you. So you can finally get from harsh grief to soft grief to grace and joy and beauty and space, so much space, until you have so much space. You realize one day you wake up, there's enough space for somebody new. And it takes time to get there. And this has been my path and my journey. And I'm so grateful for everything I've experienced in this this beautiful, beautiful relationship and the karma that we have moved through and what's been cleared and what's been completed. And forever, this human being who this podcast has been about is going to live inside of such a special place in my heart. So much gratitude to him and to us and to all that we have created and built and all that we've done for each other, the ways that I have hopefully made him a better man and the ways he has certainly, undoubtedly made me a better woman. And I hope the same for you. I hope in some way this podcast episode inspires you or ignites something in you if you're feeling particularly tender about something perhaps ending or something has ended or you're giving something a second try. Do so with your whole heart. Do so with your whole being. Do so with 2 feet in and play full out. Play full out. Don't waste a drop. There's nothing worse than being like half in, half out. Don't waste a drop. Reap all the benefits of this love. Go fully in and be generous. Be generous in the places that hurt. Be generous in the places that sting. Be generous in the places that you just can't contain because there's so much love. Life is so much easier. I've realized since I started to just allow myself to love as much as I love, like just allow the love to exist as much as I love and amplify it. Amplify it, make it even bigger. Go above and beyond in how much you can love someone into completion together. And who knows, maybe that does just lead to a second chance. The act and the art of being generous in love that may lead to second chances over and over and over and over again until the karma of something is completed. And perhaps you stay together because it's been completed and the relationship becomes more easeful and perhaps it leads to completion. But either way, it was so successful. Either way, that relationship was so successful and you have to count it as that. Reap all the wisdom, take in all the wisdom that you received from it and make it count for your next relationship. Thank you so much for listening to this one. This was a big one. I have been meditating on this episode and all the things I wanted to cover. So I'm grateful for all of you who are listening to this. If you enjoy this podcast, we'd love to have a 5-star review on iTunes. It would mean so much to me and the amount of devotion I've given to this show since 2013. Every single one of these means so much to me. And I'm honored. I'm honored to be a podcast you come back to. I'm honored to be someone that you maybe have listened to since 2013, which is a really long time. And if you want to get a head start on Artists of Love before the audiobook comes out, you can do that by ordering it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And yeah, we're going to have the audiobook come out probably in a month or 2. We'll see. We'll see when it's going to come out. But I am stoked to read Artists of Love myself, and it's going to be really fun, and I will be sure to let you know on the podcast when that happens. And if you want to follow along for daily things, you can also come on over on Instagram at Madeline Moon. I'm posting every day. And lastly, if this episode inspired you and your relationship or you know somebody who's moving through something similar, please feel free to send this episode to them so that they can feel a little less alone in this journey of love. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in a couple weeks for another new episode.